So make sure I turn you up and turn me down. I really wanted to sit down with you. Like we were just talking just a second ago. I didn't realize it's been fucking 10 years since we've sat down. And I was telling my fiance Deja that like we had met in college. I think you were the senior on the wrestling team, and I was a freshman. So it's like that's a very interesting time to kind of meet somebody, because like we see Josh Sampo pretty regularly still, and that's exactly when I met him. And like you two are kind of both like the captains of the team or leaders of the team. You know what I'm saying? Like, and to put it like not so nicely, like you're like you guys are assholes. From my perspective, like I always say, like I wasn't the biggest fan of Josh Sample, but he's like one of the nicest fucking people that I know.
The biggest heart,
dude.
But he's the most vicious little man.
Oh my goodness.
That you could ever come across. But then, as soon as the whistle blows and it's all done and the dust is settled, then he's got that smiling gremlin little grin.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. The relationship you develop through that sort of, I've just been listening to David Goggins' audiobook, and it's, that SEAL team type of mindset where there's the elders.
Yeah.
And, the only way that they can pass on the magic of the tribe is through that sort of testosterone-based aggression discipline.
Right. Dude, there's definitely a time and place. It's a part of, I feel like I can almost appreciate it, like that type of thing now more, maybe a little bit more removed from it, because like it's a group of like young men, and like there's a culture there. This is kind of like it's like this thing. I feel like maybe there should be more rites of passage almost. But my main point is like, dude, I'm like we're talking now, and like you've gone through this huge ass like shift through the years, and you just seem so much more like just calm and like just mellow of a person from then.
Yeah, and it surprises myself.
Yeah.
Even on the daily when that happens.
Yeah.
It's like, where's my explosion? I thought I would have already exploded by now. Depending on what the situation is, whether it's an angry cashier that's treating me inappropriately, or whether it's my ex-wife who is doing something wrong to me. My mindset's completely changed now. That's their problem. That's not my problem, And even better than that, once I realized that I didn't have to be so upset at factors and people that I can't control, it leads you to want to help those people that are attempting to hurt you rather than even hurt them back.
Right.
Because you understand, like you said, you're a little bit more, you pull yourself back. But I digress. Back to the, the wrestling days and the relationship that, I think back, and it's interesting how we, through just the power of an organization like the Lindenwood Wrestling Team, were able to establish a bond close enough and tight enough, not because of necessarily you or I, because, we kicked it and we had a good time, and there was not even, I wouldn't remember any animosity necessarily between us.
Right.
But it's not like we were the closest of kin, the best of friends.
Well, we were just in different pecking orders within
we missed each other's
tribe.
time as well,
You were a senior, I'm a freshman.
Right, but now 10 years later, with a little bit of, contact in between that time, I feel like we never skipped a beat.
Yeah.
And it's unique because I felt that same experience with a teammate of mine who was older than me. I don't know if you would know him. His name is Bob Howard, and I just recently saw him for the first time in 12 years.
Yeah.
Like, we never even did a day apart.
That's so interesting.
And, and it's like, why is that?
Right.
Made me think, but it's something bigger than us. And that's, I think, what that team, it's hard to articulate the camaraderie, the sharing of those terrible experiences that us coaches can provide to the athletes, and I had my same coaches with that hate and love relationship, and hate first,
Yeah.
That's, I think, the problem. That today you don't get so much of that. And I think it's a powerful experience to let your hate manifest into love
Yeah.
instead of it being the other way around.
Yeah, I feel like that's all the same emotion, hate and love. Like, I've been like I've talked to some people, and like we tend to look at things
Yeah.
as like a spectrum, and like or it's like this or that, like this dichotomy rather. But it's like it's like this it's almost all like the same thing.
Sphere or some sort of thing.
Yeah, but it's like you definitely do not want to be driven by hate. You know what I mean? But the people that I love the most, whenever I from like those times, like those years of my life, or even just anywhere in life, like whenever you look back, the people who you tend to like who push you or like you kind of have that hate love relationship with, like they push you and they piss you off. You tend to love and respect those people the most. Like they hold you accountable. That's why I feel like it's almost all like the same emotion because it's like I'm in the one moment it's like, oh, I fucking hate this person right now, like because they're making you do what you need to do oftentimes, even though you don't want to do it, like you need to do it, like it's somewhere in you, you should be doing this thing.
And that's the key.
And
They're able to push that trigger that's ultimately inside of you.
right,
And that's where it can, where it merges. Because obviously you don't hate yourself,
right,
and it's like then you realize that what they were doing, what they're telling you to do, and it takes, yeah, it gets deep because it really takes, being able to love yourself. Once you you got to be able to do that, to be able to take in that hate. I
yeah,
mean, think about that. That the ones that bailed.
oh yeah,
We all know the ones that never show up again. And, they just don't love themselves enough. But then, it's once you figure out that you're worth it, then you kind of figure out that the coach thinks you're worth it.
right,
So you almost reflect exactly what's inside of you.
yeah, that's true. I mean, really, all of I feel like all of like your perspective is just a reflection of yourself.
Yeah, and I can relate to that wholeheartedly because I was in a place in my life where, you know, I could have said that I was living in a hell. And then 4 years later, I want to slap the shit out of that person who said that, what do you mean you're living in a hell?
Right.
You're living in America. It's 2017 at the time. You've got two beautiful kids. You've got a car.
Yeah.
You've got a place to live. You've got food in your fridge. What do you mean?
Yeah.
In that perspective, that somehow I was able to lose, that cost me a lot.
Yeah. You seem to have gone through a very like interesting journey. Like having seen like post college, you didn't seem to go like the 9 to 5 route, right?
No, I tried that for about a year.
Yeah, like you didn't go the traditional route, and like you seem to be in this place now of like, well, you stopped drinking,
Yeah.
and you kind of seem to be in this place now where like you even talked about like you stopped working out. So you've gone through like this like take me through this like trip, like what's been going on in your life, dude? That's a broad question, I know.
Yeah, really just to sum it up and then to dig into it, the simpler the better is kind of my mindset.
Okay.
I always ask myself, is this going to complicate my life? That's been a big question I try to ask myself before I make a purchase, before I build a relationship, before I make a decision. Is this going to add any undue chaos to my life? Is what I ask myself. And I say undue because I believe that there should be an appropriate amount of chaos and spontaneous craziness in life. I mean, this is life.
Right.
So, the simpler the better, but, manage the. And here's the thing, the chaos is going to arrive on its own. So you don't have to worry about making sure the chaos shows up.
Oh yeah.
So that's where I thought, how about I just simplify my life? So then, at that point in time in my life, let's just say 4 years ago, it was like, what's the easiest way that I could simplify my life? The one thing, not easy in practice, easy in philosophy. And it was like, I'm a drunk. And because I'm a drunk, I'm doing so many things, hurting so many people, myself. I'm doing drugs because I'm a drunk, just so that I can drink more. I'm creating toxic relationships because I'm a drunk. It all just kept coming back to because I'm a drunk.
Mm.
So then I thought, the simpler the better would mean eliminating that.
Right.
Oh yeah, I had a ton of money problems too. So it was like, why don't I just do one thing? Why don't I not do one thing any longer? That would totally simplify my life. I didn't need overarching plan with 15 different objectives. I didn't need, certain levels. I just thought, one thing, like simplify your mind, all of your efforts on one thing so that you could be somebody different. I kept saying 5 years. You could be somebody different in a significant amount of time if you just do this one thing and really, really practice at it and do it well. So then people would say, well, I'm going to do, a skill. I'm going to learn something. And for me, it was to unlearn how to drink.
Oh, shit.
Because, yeah. And so I attacked it because, yeah, it just caused way too much pain and misery. And, I don't like going into detail, but I was addicted to cocaine. I was in and out of jail for just stupid skirmishes and just traffic while drunk and leaving the scene of an accident. And, I never had to do any significant time, but I just was always in and out of jail. So, I finally it clicked, and it was like more than anything. And now my main aim in life is to be the father that I know I can be. And up until that point, I had 2 kids. I loved them. I would have done anything I thought for them, but I wasn't. And it finally, came to me. So it was like, boom, you got a new aim, and it's solidified, and it's simple. And now you've got a plan of attack. So now you got to prove it.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. That, again, I don't care what plan you have. And that's why I think most plans fails, because they have 100 objectives.
Too complicated. Way
too complicated. It's paralyzation by analyzation after that. And you start overthinking, and it's like, no. If you take 5 seconds, this is a message for anybody. You want to know how to change your life. It's the man in the mirror. Take 5 seconds and look yourself in the eye. You'll come up with the answer. It'll knock you on your ass so fast. And you just got to be courageous enough to listen to that.
Right. We often know the answer.
100% we do.
You ask somebody, how do you lose weight? They can probably tell you what they need to do. It's simple in theory. It's never easy in practice. You have to do the work. But we know what the answer is.
Right. It's in us all the time. That's an interesting philosophy too, because, some people think that it's about remembering and not learning. Learning is remembering. And you know that because when you read a good book or when you hear a good speech, it's like, I knew that. I just never could put it into words like he did or she did. And it's like, I think about that, and it's like I think it was Carl Jung or some big philosopher kind of pegged that, and he's like, don't quote me on Carl Jung, but it was somebody worthwhile, bigger than me. And they were, learning is remembering, and it's like that just always stayed with me.
That's interesting.
Because, then it's like, well, then if we're remembering, and it does feel like we're remembering a lot of times, and not necessarily just learning the deeper things.
Mm-hmm.
So you can learn how to speak a new language or articulate a math equation. That's learning that you would think. But I'm talking about the things that kind of redirect your life.
Right.
Where it's like,
these grander lessons.
I knew this all along. Like I said, I want to slap my 20-year-old self, because it's like, you knew this, pal. And you had it inside of you, that voice that said it.
That is so true. I think about that as well. Like, in particular, I think oftentimes pain is probably one of our greatest teachers.
Yes.
And for sure one of the biggest and most painful lessons for me was going through a divorce, which was for a lot of people. And like I think about everything, like that entire relationship, and I'm just like, dude, there was so many like just red lights from the get-go which you just ignored, which you knew weren't okay. And it's like that internal wisdom, but you just, for whatever reason, there's just like this other monkey brain that just overrides that shit. It's just like, nope, we're gonna do this.
Yeah, that's human beings, all right.
Yeah,
we
dude.
we think we know something, don't we?
Dude, yeah, the more I learn, the more I don't know shit.
You want to know something funny? They put mice on like a tray. It floats on water in a pool, like 50 mice, and it's uneven, and they don't sink it. Not a single mouse will fall off into the pool. Then they scale the experiment up for human beings, and they put them out onto like a relative sized raft.
Yeah.
They crumble into the water every time. And it's that consciousness that we think we know how to fix the problem in front of us, where we try to take over when we ultimately have the answer inside of us.
Yeah.
And it's innate that even a mouse could figure it out. But, you put 50 humans on a raft and they sink it.
Some people are stupid, bro.
It depends on which 50. If they chose 50 Lindenwood wrestlers, yeah, that would sink in a heartbeat.
We might be fucked.
Yeah, man.
Oh shit, that's so funny. But dude, yeah, there's so much chaos to life to think that you can just control it all. Like sometimes you just gotta let go, and just trust the process. Trust yourself.
Yeah, and that's that balance though that I believe having a simpler life, having a simpler aim.
Yeah.
Because I don't necessarily know. You asked me where am I going to go this weekend, and I said North Carolina, and I know that, but I'm not dead set on it. And it's like I don't even know what city
Just
in
that
North
direction.
Carolina. In that direction,
I love that.
because and that's the way I think we should approach life. Is that don't try to pin coordinates down. Maybe just say you want to go northwest, and then you might find out that very soon you don't even want to go northwest, but at least you're not pinned down to the specifics of a coordinate and the exactness of it that sometimes we get trapped into. The exactness of our life keeps us in a relationship that we know for a fact we shouldn't be in. But the exactness that we had of the coordinates that we plotted before dictated that we keep moving towards that.
Yeah.
Whereas instead, you might have been able to bypass that whole ravine if you just knew, okay, I got to keep going north, but I may have to even end my final destination somewhere different than what I originally thought. And again, having a little bit more of a generic, powerful aim to be the father that I know I have the potential to be, it gets me up on time.
Yeah.
It makes me get outside and do my walks. It made me realize that working out like an insane maniac wasn't in line with what I needed to do. And so by trusting that, that aim is where I want to go. And right now, I mean, that's pretty powerful stuff for me. I want to be the father that I know I can be. It makes the day-to-day a little bit more simple.
Yeah, it's a simple aim.
I feel like I get pulled through my day rather than having to push my way through it.
Yeah, you get your purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, not drinking's a good move. It's a real good move. I feel so much better when I don't drink.
Dude, I'm so proud of you. I didn't know that, and I heard, whenever I hear that, I'm always just like, fuck yeah.
It's one of those things I've always wrestled with in the sense that, like, I've never had an issue with it, but whenever I drink, I don't feel well the next day. I feel super just bloated. My skin feels tight.
More of a physical thing.
Yeah, my joints just don't feel well. Like, I just know physically, like, it doesn't make me feel the greatest. So that's really always kind of been my thing. Like, I've kind of wrestled through most of my 20s. I'm like, man, like, I'll probably quit one day. And I'm like, in my 30s. And then, like, I hit 30. And I'm just like, now I'm 33. So I stopped last year at 32. So it's just like, those first couple of years, I'm just like, man, I said I was gonna probably do this around this time. I haven't done it yet. I'm like, man, at least let me take off a year. So then, like, I drank on the 4th of July last year, and I said I'm gonna take off a year, and I still wrestle with, like, again, because I don't have an issue with it, and I kind of like the social aspect sometimes, like even like being on the podcast, but it doesn't really give me any benefit. So I don't know if I'll ever do it again. I have no desire to do it again. Sometimes I wonder if it's just more of just it's so socially acceptable. It's just the socially thing. It's like the social thing that's always been done that it's just you just feel like it's just okay to do, even though it's so terrible for you.
Dude, that's a lot of it behind it is the social draw. That's what kept me into it.
Yeah.
I'm making networking. I'm making money. I'm improving my life. I'm establishing relationships.
We tell ourselves these stories.
Right. What we should be telling ourselves is that 50% of all murderers are drunk, and 50% of all people being murdered are drunk.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know
And
that.
if we could get people to stop getting drunk, we would half violence.
Yeah, dude, like
But you don't hear that shit, man.
No.
And that's what pisses me off and gets me all worked up because you're going to hear all these other sorts of ways that we could improve the world at large. And from somebody who's improved his own world at small, for lack of a better word, it's like, it's a no-brainer.
right.
You know?
Well, that's why the whole narrative with cannabis is such bullshit, right? I mean,
100%.
a lot of the fear mongering in the early days it was especially drawn towards saying that, you know, you're going to have black people and Hispanics and they smoke this drug and then they become violent. And
It's not
that's
even the
not,
case.
that's nowhere
go
near
to
the
sleep.
case. Dude, you go to sleep. You don't fucking want to do it. Like,
Right.
you're relaxed. You're calm. You're creative. Like, whatever the case may be. Like, violent is usually the last thing most people are.
Unless you're violent to yourself, you know, with a bag of Cheetos.
Yeah,
You
or
know,
you know, or you're already violent of a person. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right. It's not going to enhance it. But, you know, when I've done a lot of research on the alcohol, and, you know, the other factor is it's familial. So you have, I can't remember specifically, but maybe a quarter of those murders are family members. It's domestic violence.
really?
Yeah. So it's like the rule is, you know, is you don't get drunk with your family, but yet that's what everybody does every holiday, every Saturday, every Sunday, you know, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
you know, and there's a lot of correlation in that with, you know, if there's family problems to begin with that might lead to the drinking, you know, and or at least the abuse of the
Well,
drinking.
yeah. Well, the amount of people that are treating trauma with alcohol or some other form of hard drug is crazy.
That's that's where it hits home for me, you know, because I was self-medicating. My life was, you know, I was a day late and a dollar short, to be honest. I was in a relationship I didn't want to be in. This was when I was married. I lived in a house I couldn't afford. I drove a car I couldn't afford. You know, I was behind on promises.
Yeah.
And, you know, my life was an all-out mess. And I was stressed to the max. And, you know, what's the easiest way to escape? And what's the most socially acceptable way to escape?
Right, and easily accessible.
Exactly. And it pins you right into it.
Yeah, no one bats an eye if you go buy a 5th or 6-pack or 30-pack. No one gives a
Nope.
shit.
Nobody bats an eye if you're posting about having mimosas on Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Nobody bats an eye if
They
you're at a
congratulate
barbecue. Yeah, you'll get more likes and comments on your post if you're barbecuing with a Busch Light next to the barbecue or compared to a bottle of water.
Yeah, but if I sit inside my house all night and maybe do some MDMA or some psilocybin or smoke some weed, then like you're a bad person.
You're the worst. You're a criminal.
You're a druggie
Right.
because you're sitting at home. The thing is,
Because you're exploring yourself.
exactly, dude. The thing is, humans are always going to alter consciousness and explore it and test it. Like, you can't even keep drugs out of prison, bro.
No.
What
What
makes
sense does that make?
so this whole war on drugs, first of all, is just insane. You know what I mean? Like the fact that we have people locked up that are non-violent offenders for like cannabis, like that blows me away.
And now you and me with our cards can just go to the store and we can buy weed.
Yeah.
And the same people that had that same thing in their pocket, they're still in prison.
Yeah, man. It's so crazy. I was very fortunate enough to have. Fuck, dude. I'm blanking on his name.
I remember the podcast, the guy who just got out.
Yeah. I think his name's Steve.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so ashamed I don't know his name. But either way, he was in jail. He got a life sentence with no parole for cannabis, and he finally got out after some like 20 plus 30 years or 30. You know, most of his fucking life.
Right.
But it's like just the idea, and there's still people in states where it's legal in jail right now. It's crazy.
If we're putting people with substance abuse, substance charges behind cages, we've drastically lost sight of what the problem is.
Right.
Because, the fact that we think they need to be isolated, and humiliated, and demoralized, how's that going to help anything?
Right.
That's not. And now I'm not all about this whole, liberating everything and just letting the streets be run with chaos.
Absolutely not.
But I believe that there should be a definite redistribution of balance. Put it that way.
Yeah, dude, I think right is right.
And how we're prosecuting drug offenders.
Yeah.
And drug charges.
Right.
Because it's worth taking a look into. Because on the surface, it does, like you said, it doesn't make much sense. There's more drugs in prison than there are on the streets. How does that even compute?
Yeah, man. I just feel like if we really want to like be the best society and we want to have the best citizens, I don't feel like locking people up is for something that's nonviolent and isn't hurting people is an answer. I feel like we should offer more options to like help people. If you are like truly, I feel like there are models that have shown that if like just like the war on drugs, for example, like is that's failed. Like you can look at models to where instead of treating it as like a criminal offense, if you're like a drug addict, you can treat that as a healthcare situation, and we can either help you get treatment or we can help regulate this so that way it's as safe as possible, or we can help you help people address their trauma, because most people are just addressing trauma.
100%.
So it's just like there has to be a better way to do this thing that we're doing. It just blows me away oftentimes that there can be problems in society where the fix seems very simple to me, but for whatever reason, it's never simple to do.
I got a simple theory. Do you know what demographic makes up most of the inmates?
Most of the inmates today?
Yeah.
Probably like.
I mean, there's probably a lot of minorities.
Well, mostly, let's just say males, mostly white males.
Okay, you knew it. You hit it right off the get-go.
Yeah.
So let's zero in on that fact alone. So why are only males being put in prison? I'm not saying that they're not doing things that are wrong. So let's back up even more. And it's adolescent males, because they stopped going to prison at the age of 29.
Dude, the most dangerous humans on the fucking face of the planet are young men between the ages of like 16 to like 26. You're full of testosterone and hormones, and your brain's not fully developed yet.
Not even close.
You know what I mean?
You have no concept of danger.
You're a volatile individual. Mm-hmm. You have no sense of trying to like keep yourself safe. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're just out to fucking conquer. Not all.
Okay, but now hold on. So I think that is a powerful thing. I think that is one of the greatest things about human beings. I think that's what has brought human beings to where we are today. And now I'm gonna get probably bashed, especially by the feminists because of this. But it's that patriarchal drive, and a lot of it happens from the age of 12 to 30. That can either destroy or make a man. And what we've decided is just predominantly bad. That age is just going to destroy men. We have to subdue all of that testosterone, all of that drive for chaos, all of that drive for danger, all of that drive for challenge. We cannot have that in our society. And that they couldn't be more than dead wrong, because that is actually what was that powerful statement that we were talking about in the beginning that we got to share. If these adolescents that are troubled actually had a challenge that was put in front of them, maybe even a challenge better than wrestling in college, which is tough and it builds you. But what about exploration? And what about things that, can help grow humanity eventually? And, that's one of the things. I'm reading a book right now about the pioneer days and how they had to, go out into the plains, and, there was wild savages, there was Comanches and tons of Native Americans. Well, who was doing the cavalry? And these guys were 24-year-old captains, lieutenants. It made me embarrassed to think that I was peeing myself at a bar at the same age that some of these colonels were leading hundreds of troops, through the plains of New Mexico, and having adventure and being called. And in there, I understand there's a lot of debate as to the whole, white migration and what destruction that did to the tribes. But nonetheless, I feel that the progress that humanity has been able to now experience and enjoy. I mean, pipes had to be dug underground, hundreds of frozen feet. I mean, these guys, these people, like the boys that need the challenge, need to be called to these pipe fitters that go out onto the oil rigs, and they're out in the ocean and they're rocking and moving up and down, and they've got a fatality rate that's through the roof for workers' compensation and stuff like that. But they need to pay these men, and we need to support things that are going to allow these young boys to not fall prey to thinking their challenge is a fight out on Main Street. No, that's not where you're going to get your challenge that's going to provide you the meaning to keep going in life.
Right. Yeah, we shouldn't hamper that, or damper that, or
Yeah, not at all.
Like, a lot of boys, when they're turning into men, they're gonna seek that challenge. They're gonna seek that resistance in some way. They're gonna try to prove themselves, especially if they're like the alpha type, right?
Yep.
So and we got to find ways to, I feel like, to address that and to encourage that, right? I mean,
it's got to be encouraged and facilitated.
It's like these rites of passage, right? Like, I feel like maybe it's not going out and doing some of the shit that, like, when society, we're not as hard of a society as we used to be. So I don't know what the answer is. Like, how do we address it? And but it's a natural part of development. It's a necessary part of development. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think the answer's in the details, in terms of, each particular young man and maybe what his interests are and how he, I don't even want to,
because there's nothing wrong with fucking masculinity, man.
No, nothing wrong. It's not toxic.
No, dude,
it can just
it's necessary, bro.
It is 100% necessary. It can be highly toxic if it's not facilitated correctly.
Dude, any femininity can be toxic.
It can be.
You can go in the extreme in any way.
Well, and the other thing I'd always advise people to look into is when they spot a toxic male, is I would like them to go back in time and maybe find out if there was a toxic female. Moms aren't just automatically nice and caring.
Yeah,
there's a lot of vicious stories of mothers and the Oedipal syndrome and the hurtful ways that moms can, harm their kids. And there's obviously literature behind this.
Yeah, the emotional manipulation. Oftentimes.
Sure. And, and that could possibly be also caused because, you go back into their mom's history and maybe they did have a vicious father. But it's not always as cut and dry as, the child shooter who's, shooting up the school is just a toxic male who didn't, who had his aggression left out. And it's like, no, maybe there were deeper problems, and maybe it came from the maternal side as well, because, that challenge that I speak of is not just limited to men. Women want a challenge too. Young girls would like a challenge in life as well. They don't want the world handed to them on a silver platter.
Yeah.
We may in our immature adolescent minds believe that. And if that dream just keeps being, you know, believed by even the adults, then why would the kids not believe that? But I do believe that until it, because if they do get that, I believe I wasn't given the proper amount of challenge. And like I said, I think it was great that we wrestled at Lindenwood and went through some of those grinds and found out what we had. But that just left it, kind of empty. Post Lindenwood, I was lost because it's like wrestle in high school, wrestle in college, that was my challenge. It kept me kind of straight and narrow, at least on the in-season version. And the out-of-season version, I was chaos. So the signs should have been there like, hey, this boy, who was still a boy at the time, he's going to need some sort of direction.
Yeah.
He's going to need some sort of challenge because when he doesn't have that in front of him, he melts.
Well, that's a part of the issue with like, well, one, when your whole life your identity is wrapped up with being this athlete, it's very hard to like transition after that for a lot of people. But then you take into account that like you said, you're a boy, but we act like you're a man. And like, sure, maybe physically you're fairly you're for the most part you're grown. Like you're not probably gonna grow a whole lot more. Like there's still development that goes on. Like, but like I mean, because like men, we don't tend to hit our physical prime until later. But like you're still a boy. Your mind's not fully developed. But all of a sudden, we're just like, all right, well, now you're a full-grown adult in this world, and you should have it figured out.
Which is why I ended up with the house I couldn't pay for and a car I couldn't pay for. I was in a relationship that I didn't want to be in.
Right, you just start going down the path that you're told you're supposed to go down.
Right.
Get married, have kids, get the 9 to 5.
Even though I wasn't even psychologically close to being able to manage any of that. And
Dude.
there's a caveat to that because I wanted still a lot from life. I think I could have managed it if I would have just dedicated myself to paying the bills, which is, I think, what most people ultimately find themselves doing.
Right.
I had too much calling me, and I didn't know what it was. It was this sense of adventure. It was this sense of you don't need your 9 to 5, which could pay for your bills barely. You need to go start a business.
Right.
That was, I guess, my form of doing something that was ludicrous.
You needed fulfillment.
It was like going out into the frontier plains at 24 years old without a clue.
Right.
With a rifle in my hand.
Yeah, no safety net.
And I took my lumps big time, and I wouldn't trade it for anything because, I'm in a way I branched off and I LLC'd my own coaching company from that. I no longer have a physical location of a gym. I simply just do my coaching.
Okay.
And
I wondered about that. Yeah, because you had the gym for so long.
I don't need it anymore. You
just sell all your shit?
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, one guy.
Nice.
Yeah. Because so people would show up. I would have clients. This is 5 years ago. I'm the personal trainer. They show up to me Monday, Wednesday, and cancel on Fridays.
Right.
But they show up then again Monday, and they're darkened and depressed because the weekend was rough, and they then drag their ass through work all day. And then they see me at 5:30 p.m., and they look like shit. We work out, and they look great, actually, by the time they leave. And they're talking, and they're spilling some problems about their husband, and they get in their car, and it's like, awesome. I feel good about what I did. I see him Wednesday, and it's the same old slug. Because, truth be told, on the ride home, they had already started an argument with their husband, with their son. They had already got called into work early the next day. So it took me like 10 years because I was drunk and high most of the time on coke, where it's like, this isn't working. This is not even close to working for the people that I had my target market for, which is depressed, overweight, middle-aged adults.
Yeah. General population.
Which is the general pop.
Yeah.
So I said, what I'm doing, this whole gym thing, personal training thing, is not working. And I slowly saw signs, and, I didn't really act upon it, and my life was in disarray. And, once I got myself back together, and once I sobered myself up, and once I could see that this is just 3 to 4 month wheel that these people get on and ride and fall off. I said, I've got to address the source of their problems. They're in a relationship they can't stand. They're in a job they don't want to be at. And they may live where they don't want to live. I mean, these are bigger problems than
Yeah.
a bench press or a squat rack is going to be able to fix.
Right.
And, and in my naivety as a kid, 20-year-old, I thought people could just out burpee their problems, because it did work. It was like a magic drug. Like immediately, you do 18 burpees in a minute, and then you're, oh wow, I feel different. Yeah, it's like a drug. Just keep going, and it's like, well, eventually you got to come back, and you got to come back to real life, and you got to come back to why your shoulders are slumped, why you drag your feet,
Yeah.
barely get out of your car on that Monday at 5:30 to go in and exercise, which should be a celebration of your body, not punishment, which again is a cliche Pinterest freaking meme,
Yeah.
but it's so the truth. Like,
It is
what
true.
do you're punishing yourself just being alive, bro.
Yeah.
You can't even get out of the car. You're huffing and puffing. Your blood pressure's through the roof. What are you doing adding punishment to that existence?
Right.
You're emotionally empty because I can see it. Because your posture, your eyelids, your face says that you're emotionally empty.
Right.
So, that is the problem. It's not that they can't do a 500-meter row fast enough. It's just that they're emotionally empty. So then I got on this whole research tangent. I'm pondering why everybody's so emotionally empty, and it just dawned on me that, well, my kids aren't emotionally empty. They seem fairly freaking normal. They can play instantly. They can get up. My son will take a challenge to do a trampoline trick any second. Their spontaneous laughter, it's like, wow, they're actually healthy. And then, look at the way they move. And look at the way the adults I was speaking of earlier, move. They can't touch their toes. They can't do a cartwheel to save their life. A lot of these people can't even do a squat so that their hips go below their knees.
Right.
Which makes me wonder how much pain and suffering it just going to the bathroom is. And so it started all tying together that I realized, obviously, and I had known this before, that your physical health and your mental health and your emotional health, it's all one.
Right.
But now it really started coming into play. Like, okay, I knew that, but then why was the fix for physical health to be able to bench press 300 pounds? What did that have anything to do with improving my emotion? Besides that 10 seconds that you get that PR.
Right.
And then the next 4 days that you suffer because your body is broken.
Right.
And what are you getting out of that? Unless you are a paid professional. Those are the people that just aren't privy. This conversation doesn't apply to them.
Right.
But these are the 9-to-5ers. These are the people who are emotionally empty. What are you doing running off to Orange Theory? You don't have enough time in your life. And you're going to leave your work and you're going to run off to Orange Theory to make another appointment. I don't know about you, but I hate appointments. It's like, how many appointments can you have, especially if you're working 9 to 5?
Right.
So then you're going to make 2 appointments each week. How do you feel about those appointments? You don't lie. You feel great after you're done. I know that, and I see the posts from people. They feel great after exercising. But long term, I follow some of these folks after 5-10 years, and my clients, same thing that I was working with for 5 or 10 years, and they're just going downhill.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like something is not working here.
Because it's not a lifestyle.
It's not a lifestyle, man. And there's nobody else preaching. There's nobody else preaching it because there's too much money to be made if you don't. That's what it comes down to. And you can, it's so much easier to sell a product than it is to teach a skill.
Right.
And so what you're left with are even the authorities of the fitness industry resorting to fulfilling aimless pipe dreams that people have through a product or through some sort of snake oil to completely take the pressure off that person to the idea of what actually has to happen. You got to touch your toes. I don't care what sort of keto diet, supplement, drink you're having. I don't care what your doctor said about your blood pressure. And I'm not sure why your doctor didn't even have you try to touch your toes. Instead, he wrapped a sleeve around your arm and he pumped it a few times. And then he told you something that you don't even understand. He said, these numbers, they don't look good. And you nodded. And you went on with your way and you start taking pills that this human being told you to take based on these numbers. It doesn't add up. So why is it happening? Because it's easier. It's easier for the doctor and it's easier for the patient. It's a conspiracy. It's also easier for the personal trainer because that's what, I don't want to let them out. It goes from the personal trainer all the way up the healthcare spectrum to the physical therapists, to the nurses, to the doctors, to the insurance companies. It's a scam and it's all a conspiracy because even the personal trainers, I started understanding long before I got the guts to start speaking out and understanding what it is that I was doing, how it would affect me. I knew that what I was doing was just a hamster in a wheel. And at best, a hamster in a wheel. At worst, that wheel was getting pulled backwards as the hamster was running its dick off. So, yeah, it's a conspiracy, and that takes two parties. It takes the patient who wants the easy way out, and it takes the doctor who's willing to give the easy way out. And then you have your conspiracy of two people believing that they're trying to fix themselves when they don't even have no idea that their posture could be improved with a few simple movements each day and not hundreds of dollars of medication each month.
Right. It's not complicated.
No, it's not. But
it's not
because
sexy.
It's so simple, it's not sexy and it's not sold. Sex is what sells, man.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, so it's not, it doesn't have curb appeal.
No, dude. Yeah. Like I just sat down with Dr. Aaron Horschig, who runs Squat University.
I saw that.
And yeah, it's a lot of the same things you're saying, man. Like, how many people can just squat? Like, how many people are just taking the time to do these basic human, like, just movements that you lose, that you don't even think about? You know what I mean? Like, how many people actually crawl?
Why do you think people don't do that? Why do you think it's better to post a bar graph of an orange stripe, a green stripe, a red stripe, and a blue stripe, and a bunch of points that say 22? And then people post that because everybody wants attention, and I understand that it's the name of our life. We want attention from the moment we're born. Why isn't setting up your phone, crawling through your room, back and forth, worthy enough to get, you go, girl. Oh, I'm going to do that as soon as I get home from work.
Yeah.
I've already got it in my schedule. I'll show you mine. Because that's what's happening with these, retail gyms these days that are just, we can't get distracted. And I like that people are seeking, if they truly are seeking ways to improve themselves. That's first and foremost. I don't want to come off as this expert who's got the right solution.
Yeah.
Because what works for you works, and go with it. I'm just going off the aggregate data. It's not working.
Well, in general,
I mean, our country is huge.
Yeah, at all levels, we don't seem to be addressing the root cause. It's always just, symptoms and Band-Aids that we put out there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like at every level of health and fitness, like, we need to be addressing the root cause, and that's the conversation that isn't
and that's
the norm.
Like a squat and touching your toes and basic stuff, it should almost be required to do like any higher intensity exercise. Like, these places should actually stand and be accountable to what they preach. Like, it's not healthy for people who can't physically touch their toes to move in a circuit training form for 60 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not healthy. I don't care. Back again, I'm happy that they're trying to do something, but I will be the first to tell them what they're doing is wrong and actually harming what it is that they hope to achieve. If they hope to achieve progress and not just get attention.
Right.
So if you really want progress and you're not able to do a deep squat and you're not able to touch your toes, then you need to focus on that first. And anybody who tells you different doesn't care about your total well-being.
That's a worthy pursuit, being able to do a squat.
Most definitely.
100%.
And there's a million different ways that you can actually start to progressively build that.
Yeah, and we're not talking about a fucking barbell squat.
No,
we're talking
I
about
want butt to calves.
Yeah, a body weight squat, ass to grass. You're sitting there, you can chill.
Yeah,
like that's you see
tribal style.
You see 2-year-olds do it all the time.
Yes, they do, and they continue doing it until we make them sit all day.
Yes.
So they do it up until about 5 or 6.
And we start putting shoes on their feet.
Right. It's and that's what I'm saying. The healthy, we were all there, and I can't say all these days because I know there's even a lot of kids that, due to unfortunate circumstances, they grow up into an unhealthy state quite early. But kids are resilient, and even in some of the most unhealthy situations, they stay pretty strong up until 8, 9, 10, pre-pubic age, and then they start to put on if they live in a family or in an environment that has poor health habits, then you start to see the effects.
Right.
But the human body is so resilient during those developmental years that it depending on genetics, they're willing to fight through that. But then it just gets too much and too much nature or nurture over nature.
Right.
And the unhealthy tendencies take over and the effects are seen.
Right.
But you take your healthy 7-year-old, like I said, they can cartwheel, they can touch their toes, they can deep squat, they can do all of these things. Name one other area in human development that we allow a complete regression from the point in time that we were 7, 5.
Yeah.
Do we allow people to just drastically regress in how they speak, in their vocabulary, in their interpersonal skills?
Well, Randy, it's accepted, right? Like, what do you mean you're 30, you're old? Once you're 30, your body's supposed to start breaking down. I don't know what the fuck where this narrative came from. I don't know where this narrative came from, but like that is the narrative. It's like once you start hitting a certain age, you're just old. Your body just starts to break down.
I'm too old for that. That's what you hear.
Oh my gosh.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't think my kids have ever heard me say I'm too old for that.
Right. It's like, what?
Unless it was like going down the kid slide. Like I'm too big for that.
Yeah, no more Happy Meals, man. I collected all those toys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's become a collective, and like most conspiracies, most things that aren't true, it takes a lot of people, and they have a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because, the obesity rate is well over 40%.
That's insane.
That's just obesity. Overweight people, we're about 75%. So 25% of our population is neither overweight or obese. But even that 25% isn't necessarily healthy.
Is that based on like BMI or what's that based off?
Yeah, that's based off of BMI. But now what the CDC is doing, they started in 2018, I think, maybe a couple years before that. They're actually doing like call out studies, it sounds like. Like they're getting it's individual responses.
Oh, okay.
So, take that as it may be, but I would say that actually lends more evidence that there might be more obese people or overweight people, because there's a lot of people who might just not want to admit it, and so there's a combination of self-reported and doctors' patient results based on BMI, to answer your question.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, Adam, I don't care about statistics, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
What I go by is I'm more of a behaviorist, and it's like I don't care what you say you believe. Like, I just watch you.
Right. What are your actions?
Yeah. And so I just go out in public, and I watch people, and it's not even the overweight. So that's what I'm saying, So you have 75% of the people that are overweight in this country. What about the people that aren't overweight but have poor posture? You know, that aren't they couldn't do a cartwheel to save their life.
Well, there's a real issue where it's you might be like normal weight, but you're what's known as metabolically obese, right? So
Which brings the
you're
other
skinny fat, right?
Right. So again, these people should also want to know that okay, so I fit into your gap, this weird window of statistics, and you claim that I'm healthy. But if I was one of those individuals, I would want to know that, you know, our doctors and our physical therapists should actually have a chart like that pyramid I made that says, okay, you know, you need to be able to touch your toes. You should be able to look behind you through your legs is another thing that toddlers love to do. Why? Because it builds awareness. Here's another whole factor that we haven't touched on. The vestibular system, the upside down, the rolling, the forward rolls, the backwards rolls, the dynamic movement of a child. So what that does to stimulate the brain and how our genetics are actually expecting our brain to be moved, because we once climbed in trees, and so that when we were sedentary we would lay on a branch like this, but then once we started to move, our brain would go upside down, it would be slung around, and that would all of a sudden stimulate our entire body, because for survival purposes, if you're moving, you might have something important to do, like go find food or go fight somebody.
Yeah.
So that movement of forward rolling, most people can't do a forward roll to save their life.
Right.
And I don't recommend that an adult try that without, you know, obviously some serious preparation. And that sounds silly, but that's the truth.
At the very least, the mat.
Something you could do, though, is to stand up and try to look between your legs at a clock on the wall behind you.
Yeah.
Because then you're upside down. And then you can come back up. And if you do that, most adults will say, oh,
Yeah.
I'm dizzy. And it's like, yes, you are. Now, that doesn't mean that you just did something that's bad for you. What that means is your body hasn't done that since you were 6.
You're just not used to it.
And you're just not used to it. And you got blood float around in your brain in spots it hasn't been touched since you were 6.
Right. We view those as kid movements, and it's like, oh, that's just things that kids do. But
Right.
It's things that humans do.
That's human progression, motor development. And we have now decided, because enough Karens made it so, that that's just something kids do. I shouldn't do that.
Right.
You know, and that started with the convenient lie of one individual, and it continues to this day with the aggregate lies from individuals.
Yeah, everybody's
I've heard them. You're at a park. You know, I play with my kids, and unfortunately what happens is that becomes sort of an attraction at a playground for the other kids. An adult is running up and down the steps and going through the slide.
Yeah.
And that becomes the focal point. And unfortunately, what that does is it shines another light on the other adults. And, you know, I don't know what type of light that is, but for them, you know, but I can speak from my own purpose that it doesn't look like a good light that's shined on them. And it's only by their response that I say that, because again, I just watched them.
Yeah.
They don't look too happy. And I've heard comments then, because you get the invite then from little Timmy. Dad, I want to go up there. Oh, I'm too old for that.
Yeah.
And
Probably makes him like just feel.
And
sorry.
then little Timmy hears that, and he's been told that a lot, and his uncle probably says the same thing.
Yeah.
And so does his teacher. You know, you guys are too old to be doing that.
Yeah.
And so he's heard that a lot from authorities. And, you know, at a certain point in time, if you've heard it enough, and it's very convenient to what you want to do, which is be lazy, then it's definitely the truth.
Yeah.
And you're gonna believe it, and you're gonna even maybe preach it if it comes down to it, and scold people for it, or condemn people for it.
Well, much of life is the stories that we tell ourselves.
That's all it is.
Yeah, man.
It's just a giant narrative, man.
Yeah, what narrative are you choosing?
Yeah, and that's, you know, you touched on that a while back with my life, and, you know, I would say with yours too, man. It's like, how many chapters do you want in your book? You know, hopefully a lot of them, and, you know.
Yeah, I'm going to live until at least 106.
Why 106?
I don't know. I knew I was going to be at minimum 100, and I was just like, 106 sounds good. I like even numbers.
Yeah, dude, I've always wanted to live to 100. I've never been so like, and I probably should start because it's like you believe it, then you achieve it.
Yeah.
But I've never just been like completely convicted like that where I yell out 106.
That's it,
But
baby. 106.
why would you not want to live past 100? Well, I know why, because a lot of people, I see how a lot of people over my age begin to have diminished quality of life.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I just wish people understood how grand of a time we do actually live in, and what they could be doing with their time.
Yeah.
That's what I do with my business more or less these days is it's such a phony word, but it's a life coaching thing, and it's like
Hmm.
people hear that and it's like, well, I have a pastor for that, and or I have a father already, and it's like understandable, but to have another set of eyes, you get a coach when you do your taxes at the end of the year. Most people do if they run a business. They
Most
go and
people,
get an accountant.
most people need coaches.
I had a coach to get me out of jail, and it's like, why would I do something as serious as my taxes or trying to get me out of criminal
Hmm.
charges? Why would I not want a coach for that? And so then when you start thinking about any endeavor in life, you might want another set of eyes watching what it is that you do. And so, I use a simple setup of rituals, to try to get people to actually be able to wake up and just see how grand their life is. And so these rituals are not spectacular moves, and they're each individual to the person. A lot of them are kind of the same, and I'll kind of explain what I mean because a lot of people think, oh, he's talking about a set of habits, and I read a book called Atomic Habits, and I know how to build habits, and it's like, we all talk about habits, and I'm talking about something a little bit different. I'm talking about a ritual, and what a ritual is what I alluded to earlier. It's got a little bit more punch. Even the word sounds more serious. Like, holy shit, this dude's got rituals.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I'm talking about waking up early. I'm talking about walking around the neighborhood, and I'm talking about reading books. And it's like, yeah, okay, you're talking about daily habits. And it's like, no, man. Like, rituals have a greater meaning. Like, a ritual is religious in definition, which means it contains something that doesn't already or can't be proven to exist.
Right. It's sacred to you.
And it's huge. It's potential type of a thing. So it's like my ritual of, I got a set of rituals aimed at becoming the father that I know I can be. So yeah, I'm not getting up to walk around the block. I'm getting up to freshen my body so that I can think right for the day. Well, why do you want to think? So that I can be the father I know I can be. So now all of a sudden, it's not about, I better skip my walk this morning. It's raining outside. I can hear it pedal in the window. It's like, no. Like, that's why I have it on my shirt. No days off. Like, you got to have a goal, an aim, a belief that's actually, like, you would be disgusted if you took a day off from being the father, trying to be the father that you know you could be. You want to take a day off from that?
Right.
Like, holy smokes, bud. So now it puts a whole different concept into your daily habit
Yeah.
because it's a ritual. And I like those religious words as well because sacrifice. I love that word. And people like to water it down these days, which is another good word, but they call it responsibility. And oftentimes with my clients, I've just asked them to reverse the two words and say, rather than waking up and making a list of your personal responsibilities, why don't you wake up and make a list of things you're sacrificing? What are you sacrificing for? Because that's the same thing. You go to work, it's a sacrifice. You get up to go walk around the block early because you go to work early, so you got to wake up extra early to do your walk. You're not just waking up to exercise. You're actually sacrificing. It's a physical act
Mm-hmm.
aimed towards that ritual.
Right.
Or it's that ritual of sacrifice is probably a better word to put it. And then you can even throw another religious word in there that just scares the hell out of people is worship. Like, what are you worshiping? And then people say, what? I don't even believe in a God. And it's like, well, clearly, but what are you paying attention to the most?
Right.
That's what worship means. What are you paying the most attention to? Is it your Facebook? Is it Netflix? Is it your car, your abs, your personal record, your money? Or is it your kids, your loved ones, yourself? Like, what are you worshiping? So now all of a sudden, those aren't just habits. Those aren't just good things that you could do throughout your day. It's put a whole new meaning to, it should at least, to the situation. Like, you got rituals that you sacrifice for every day. And, you worship being the father that you could be.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you use terms like that, and it makes it more serious.
Yeah, dude. Actions always speak louder than words.
Right.
You can tell a lot about a person by the things that they do.
100%. And it's that acting well, I've always said people don't make a decision until they act upon it.
That's true.
Which even helps just writing things down, because
that's an action.
Yeah, because you have to face it later.
Mm-hmm.
So at least it made it real.
Mm-hmm.
And I never knew that either. I had a hard time, probably didn't want to face the truth of things because journaling is a difficult thing if you're a liar. Dude, fucking life is difficult if you're a liar. I think about that, and that's like, I used to just be the biggest liar. Lies just all day. And now, it's so easy to spot from people. And it's just like, I don't curse them for it or judge them for it. I truly feel bad for them because I know that something's going on to the degree that they got to lie about it.
Right.
And it's like, I think we're all human to a degree, and we're going to sneak those white lies through, and we're still going to try to maybe impress, if it be our parents or somebody that we just first meet. It's kind of a fine line. You don't just go rolling in to meet your future in-law smoking a bowl.
Right.
But it's the truth, the more you can focus in and know your truth,
right,
the better off you're going to be.
Right.
And that's that journaling process that was impossible because it's like, what am I going to write?
Yeah, that's true, man. I think you just said, the more you know your truth. And it's like, when we're going through life, and at least this has been my experience, I feel as I'm getting older, a lot of it is just learning what is my truth, and then, but more so, just accepting what is my truth, just being more self-accepting of, again, the things that I already knew. Like you said, it's like, you're not learning, you're just remembering, right? Because I'm more comfortable, when you get older, it's almost, they say that you don't care as much about what people think. You know what I mean? That's why when you have that old man who just says whatever the fuck is on his mind. But is that remembering? Is that, learning your
Took
truth?
you that long to remember who you really are.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Or is that what that process is? As you're getting older, you're more accepting of yourself. You don't try to be something that you're not. Some people, but at least for me, I feel like I'm in a place now where I just am who the fuck I am. And I had to go through some shit to be there, but along the way, I learned my truth. And I wonder, is that remembering part of who the fuck you are? Because you're a kid, and you're just so influenced by what everybody thinks and what you think they think, and your friends, and you want to try to be this thing that you're not, and you resist these feelings and different things, and it's like.
But you're not anything as a kid yet. That's what's interesting. It is that combination of an experience with your potential. That's the mystery of life. But before I lose my point, you said, it's more of an accepting of the truth. And I think you're spot on, because I think what most people should come to realize is that truth isn't concrete, and it's definitely not easy to wrap your hands around. What seems to be easier, though, is to recognize an untruth. And to be able to avoid that is not necessarily easy, but recognizing the untruth. Mm-hmm. So even in my worst of times, I knew everything wrong that I was doing. There's a little voice. There's a soul. There's a whatever it is. It's inside of all of us. And I've asked everybody, and I'm done asking people now because I wouldn't believe them if they told me because it's a 100% answer. Everybody knows that you shouldn't do what you're about to do, and then you do it, and it backfires on you, and you knew it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is truth. And it's hard to put your fingers on, but you knew what it wasn't. And so it's that acceptance. Like you said, you have to accept that you don't really maybe even know what truth is, but you know what it's not, and we'll call it truth. Because I guess by default, avoiding what's not true then would be true. I'm not going to go that way.
Yeah.
I know because I hear that voice inside me that says, don't stay in this relationship. So then I'm going to follow this way, and it's got to be true.
Right.
I think that's our best hope at actually finding what is true, because the other aspect of why it's not concrete is where it's always changing. What's true is not stabilized. I mean, there's nothing in this world that's stabilized. Everything's moving, man, and it's going to continue to move. And it's that naive human proclivity to want to put it in a chart.
Yeah.
Like like they do with exercise and like
Yeah.
they do with health. Let's put something as magical as humans and human thinking. Let's put some order to this. And it's like, good luck.
Yeah.
And so that's why trying to order truth is just, it's impossible. But I think it's really easy to discover untruths.
Yeah. Oftentimes, just knowing what something isn't is enough to figure out what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, give those old fuckers some credit. They've actually been able to, there's so many things that can take you out. And so just being alive at 80, has got to give you the sense of empowerment. Imagine, how I looked at you as a freshman and I was a senior. Now imagine being a real senior. We may look at him now and be like, oh, that poor bastard, he's old and decrepit. I don't think it works that way.
Yeah.
It's probably, if done right, it probably empowers you to be that old. And then, along with that empowerment comes, speaking your mind, wearing your pants up over your belly button and because it's comfortable, and wearing those white shoes because that's what slip on easy.
Yeah. I try to keep that perspective in mind when in the present, things kind of feel like it's going to be forever, or like what's happening right now is it's always going to be this way. I always try to keep the perspective of like, all right, well, I'm 33 right now. When I'm 50, like you have that's 17 years between now and then. Will I really be stressing then about the things that I'm stressing now? So, and I say that because like, as I'm trying to build this podcast and try to build this business and do these things, it's like, you just got to trust the process and just know it's going to take time. Like, I can't stress that I'm not there now, but eventually I just trust that I'll be there. Like, life is fucking long. I can't stress. It doesn't mean I can't do work and do things right now, but if you just fucking, if I at least I tell myself, like, if you can just have the perspective that this isn't forever, that life is long, then it kind of like helps fucking.
I think you got it.
Keeps me in like an even keel.
Just from what I know and what we've talked about with you, it's like, I think with any adventure, any challenge, it's easy to get wrapped up in the details of your particular challenge, the mountain you want to climb.
Yeah.
But I think as long as you stay focused through that specific challenge at improving yourself along the way, and probably at a priority compared to, so my advice to you would be to continue working on Adam first rather than the podcast first. Continue working on Adam, because the podcast is a product of you,
right? And
you just to go off of your actual statement you made, the world's going to be a different place in 50 years. Podcast could be the same as a 8-track. We could hear that, and the whole concept of it all is just laughable. Not because you once tried to do it, because life is life.
Yeah.
And so, but through that process, it's not a failure then. You didn't fail at starting a podcast. Just like Kodak didn't fail at developing photos anymore because that just doesn't happen. They adapted, and so
Yeah.
because you would work on yourself from 33 to 40 when some weird invention comes that just dismantles the internet,
Yeah.
then you're still somebody who's been working on themselves for the last umpteen years,
Right.
rather than working on a podcast.
Yeah.
And you see that with the 9-to-5ers. When they retire, they're done.
Yeah.
Unless they have a dedicated plan and they know what they're doing, they're done. Because they've lived in a warped time bubble type thing, and they've progressed in their terms of how the company they work for has progressed. But outside of that bubble, they're just still the 26-year-old intern who started at that company. And now they're 58 and they walk away. And by the time they're 62, they're just lost and they're just beaten because they haven't, they
never developed themselves.
They never developed themselves, and they're in a world in which that it requires severe adaptation from 9 to 5 to non-structured time. So that's a challenge in and of itself.
Yeah.
Retirement, but let alone.
I don't think I'll ever retire.
No,
I'll always be doing
I'm retired
something.
right now. That's the way I explain it. And people laugh at me, and it's like, yeah, I mean,
You're just living life.
I still got bills, and, it's like I got kids at 12 and 9, but I'm retired.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much to do that's better than working. And people hear that, and they're like, what? What do you mean? And it's like, we're not doing the same things that we were doing in 1940 anymore, So why would we still be doing the things that we were doing in 1999?
Yeah, I don't view work as like a bad thing. I don't like view going to. I don't want to go to like a place where I have to go work and clock, like punch a clock. But I feel like I'll always be working, whether it's on myself or towards something. Like I'm always
Sure.
I'll always be doing something. And I think maybe what I meant was like I know that when I'm 40. Like, I just trust the process. Like, I'm going to get there. And I know when I'm 40, I'll be at a place to where I want to be at. So when I'm there, I'll look back on, like, where I'm at now, and I'll just be like, you just have all this knowledge and perspective. Like now, when I look back whenever I was 20, I'm just like, man, I didn't really need to stress about some of the things I was stressing about, right? So now I try to keep that perspective now whenever I start. It's like, all right, man, well, you're doing all these things or you have all these goals or whatever the case may be. It's like, dude, just relax because this is just life, man. Like, I know when I'm 40, I'll look back and I'm like, the things I'm stressing about or the goals that I have or the things that I'm working towards, it's never really as big as it seems in the moment.
Right.
You know what
We
I
got a
mean?
way of making it pretty big.
Right.
Like think of the nerves and everything we wasted before every single match.
Dude, exactly.
In the tournament the night before.
It's
And
like,
then it's
dude,
just come Monday, it's like,
dude, we're just living, man.
Yeah.
Just trust the process and just live life, man.
yeah, I feel that so much as it's being hard to do. Like, because it's such a balance because I feel like when I work with people who are not in the best place in life, they have too much of that. What you just mentioned, just letting life kind of take them as it goes.
Like they're not living intentionally.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And so, there is that. That's why I focus on my rituals.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why I quit working out. And that's, because again, what that allowed me to do was actually realize that a lot of the things that I was doing prior that were even in good intention weren't necessarily beneficial for my long-term aim.
You're right.
And so it's that balance of and you wouldn't know that if you didn't take inventory. And taking inventory means counting.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like spreadsheet shit. And it's like, wait, no, I just want to live a happy life, And it's like, there again, I think that's a poor statement. To live a happy life is a mistake. You want to live a meaningful life.
Right.
Because happiness will go at times.
You're not always supposed to be happy.
No. And then what do you do if like your aim is dismantled at the moment? Then you're left aimless, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So when a loved one passes, or when you're dealing with an extreme tragedy, that happiness is not even a question. It can't be on the radar. That means your goal is not on the radar. That means you're aimless. And if you're aimless, it's not a good place to be.
Yeah.
So, when people are aiming at wanting to be wealthy or be happy are big ones. A lot of wealth and a lot of happiness is completely out of our control. And when I mean wealth, again, I'll reiterate here. We're living in the wealthiest time in the history of the earth. We live in the wealthiest country. If you make over $30,000, you're in the top 1% of the world. So the poorest people in our country are the richest people in the world. Like, we've got it pretty good. We've got it really, really good. And damn, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, dude, I was just so entrenched in listening to you. We were talking about not aiming for happiness, but aiming for meaningfulness.
Okay, yeah. So sometimes what you get is people aiming for happiness, and wealth is the big one.
Right.
I mean, why are you trying to aim for wealth? And
you're not
right
in control
now,
of
like,
that, right?
No, and it's like, to aim for wealth, there's no difference in 200,000 and 500,000. And people that make those two monies would tell me I'm insane. Mm-hmm. But it's like, no, I'm talking greater meaning here. There's no difference. If you construct your life in the way that it should be constructed, then there's no difference in that. Because again, you're taking care of it. You're taking care of it $30,000 if you live right. You're fed, you're safe, and you can get places. So now, what you do after that is up to you. It's not about how much more money you make, or it's not about being any more happy. So that is why those people leave those two things as like, I need more money and I need more happiness. No, you need more meaning. How do I get more meaning in my life? I'll circle back. You need more challenge. Because that's what those, like we talked about, the kids aren't getting this day and age.
It's a necessary part of human existence.
Well, once you have a challenge, then it actually provides you meaning because
Right.
you overcame it, or you didn't overcome it, and you still have meaning. Mm-hmm. It gives you something to do tomorrow.
Right.
Because you didn't get over it the day before. So you got something to do. That's one of the biggest problems that modern people have, and that we haven't ever had before in human history, is boredom. And it's this because we are all rich kids for quote unquote rich kids. We have our lives taken care of us. You woke up in 1904, you woke up in St. Charles County, Missouri. You didn't have to stop and think about what you were going to do today, what your aim was for the day. That was figured out for you.
Yeah, you just woke up and
you had to go to work. I mean, It was hard as hell to survive in 1904.
Yeah.
And there was a lot to do just to survive. There was a lot to do because they wanted to thrive. Because we still have the same thing. There's plenty to do. Take one look at your life. If you can't find the imperfections, I'll do it for you. Because there's plenty to do. But we've got this rich kid mindset because we live in such glorious times that we actually get to be bored. And we have iPhones, and we have Zoom meetings, and we have anything. We got vehicles that drive themselves and parallel park themselves. We've got electricity at the flip of a switch.
Dude.
And yet you can't find anything to do. And that is the truth of the matter. And that is why it also comes down to, I ask my clients to wake up early in the morning. They don't have anything to do. So again, and that was my problem. Why would I wake up and just sit there? Well, you got to have something to do. Yeah. You got to have an aim. You got to have a challenge. Because if it's not a challenge, you're not going to want to do it because you are a human being. And there's no escaping that. And by nature, you want a challenge. You may confuse yourself. I like asking my clients that question a lot too. How difficult do you want your life to be?
Well, life's going to be difficult regardless. You just got to choose your hard.
Yeah. Well, I always say 1 to a 10, and it's interesting to get the responses. Because initially you would think, I want my life to be 1. How difficult do you want your life to be? Most people, 1. And it's like, really? So you want to lay there? I'll put a straw in your mouth, and then we'll put a catheter into you,
Yeah.
and then you exist.
Nobody. I don't know why you'd ever want that.
Right. So then, but it's like, dang, then what do I want a 10? Do I want to be like,
With the hardest existence.
who's that guy, that wrestler with no legs and no arms back in the day? I think there's probably been a few of them now, but it's like, you want to be that guy? That
I'll
challenge?
take a good 5.
Give me somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere. Yeah, I don't. Dude, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question though.
And yeah, I just think that's the missing link there for a lot of folks, is just, you got to have something worthwhile, something to wake you up in the morning. And it doesn't, I mean, hell, maybe you don't have kids, because that seems to be what drives me. There's no better feeling than, knowing I was dad of the day, it's like, and there's no worse feeling than when you drop the ball in the dad game.
It happens.
It does. And I like the fact that it is a terrible feeling, because it lets me know that I care.
Yeah.
When I was coaching wrestling, it was like, if the kid just didn't care when he lost, it's like, man, you're done. I'm not helping you one bit.
Yeah.
You just don't even want it, and
right.
It's like, but when you get upset, over something, and it, it's like that. Yeah, you look at that. Why is that upsetting you? It means a lot to you, and don't run from that because of the challenge of it. And because again, a lot of times it's like, oh, that means a lot to me. I'm out. And it's like, no, that's where you got to look. And it's like, face that. That's one of the, I'm so glad, and I'm sure you can attest to this, like, just being able to put your toe on the line, and for you, like close the cage door. It's like, that says a lot, and to be able to do that, act it out, not just say it. When you act out a challenge, such as a fight or a wrestling match, that just the dynamics of it are just completely, that's why it's not on paper,
Yeah.
It's like the dynamics, when you can do that and you're the man in the arena, that's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, man, there's definitely something about, entering into those high stakes situations, or just any stressful situation that you have to overcome some sort of adversity or challenge. It's just so important, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, the psychology, the literature, again, it states it. You get serotonin,
Oh,
you get
yeah.
dopamine. I mean,
Oh,
you
dude,
just feel
I love
adrenaline.
Yeah, falling into that flow state is the best.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And then
man.
it's all based on overcoming,
Mm-hmm.
and it's actually, the science I've read is it's all based on the actualization of movement, of progress forward. Because when you get to your destination, you become satiated, and there's a different response in your brain. It's actually good. I can shut down. For instance, you eat a big turkey sandwich, your body says, good, I made it. And there's that.
Yeah, that little.
But when you're in the thick of it, and you won round 2 and you won round 3, you're not tired, and then you win the fight,
Right.
and you're not thinking about retiring the next day.
Yeah.
You're thinking about, what am I going to do? Where am I going next with this? What camp am I going to pursue to improve my skills? So it's like that level of ascertaining progress will keep that dopamine and serotonin pushing.
Yeah. Progress is addictive.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it is.
But once it slows,
And it can be hard to get that momentum back.
dude, they say like absolute, and that's like absolute zero in terms of like mathematics. It like doesn't exist type of a thing, because it's like the stoppage of molecules.
Yeah.
And it's like, but being on the bottom, broke, no relationship, and it's like, dude, sometimes it's easy to see how you get stuck there, because I believe that the same sort of momentum of progress can be a lifetime thing. That's why the rich get richer, and it's why that, once you get to be a certain level of, skill sets, you're given more opportunities. You're never going to get away from that concept of, the energy attraction of something snowballing.
Oh yeah.
And growing.
100%. That's just like a law of life.
Yeah, it's called the Pareto distribution, actually, in mathematics, and like gas molecules, and if you follow like any creative human works, such as like
were you a math major?
finance.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I bring up math a lot. Well, it just, for me, it makes sense of, and I know you're more free-spirited than I am, I would guess. But even though I'm trying to go to school off of people like you a lot more, because just naturally I'm so...
You're very analytical.
Yeah, you hear me. I keep having to bring it back down to numbers.
That's totally fine.
But they're just fake. You know, that's what the funny thing of it is.
This agreed upon thing that we all fucking just live by. No, I get it.
It does. It provides me that. So I've got this, I got this thing that I do daily. And what I do is I've got 2 different sheets. And I use a Google Docs. So I have one that's chaos, meaning it's a Word document. And I call it Life Worth Living, and it's just thoughts.
Okay.
That doesn't help me, though, because I talk about a good idea, or I talk about, I got to get clients to start thinking about morning rituals way more, and I just quick jot that down, and it's like, what's the practicality of it?
But jotting it down is important because, like, what are our thoughts? What are our ideas? It's like...
I think it needs to be complemented, and here's the other thing. So this is a spreadsheet now. And this is what I've done this morning. Read, the time I read, how much time. These are my rituals that I kind of track. Because numbers have to come into play. They have to. In order to ascertain any progress.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's completely... Which
it means nothing if you don't have some sort of...
It might mean nothing even with the numbers, but at least it gives us something.
Look, at the end of the day, if it makes you happy, bro, that's all fucking matters.
Right. But for me, it was like I have to balance, and I have to find that balance of chaos and order.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just... Yeah, so you will hear me bringing back down... Well, because, again, the thing I say is 1% better every day. I love that concept. Mm-hmm. Because as a numbers guy... I know what if you invested $100 at 1% every day. Oh my gosh, like dude,
you're rolling, bro.
You'd be pissing on Jeff Bezos in a matter of a week, or it's astronomical how fast that improves. So that's where it's like I don't even need 1% a day.
Yeah,
I mean 0.01% a day.
Yeah,
of improvement, and for me that was so satisfying to know that like. Wait, I don't have to do everything today.
Right.
I don't have to I just have to get a good, steady line of progress.
Yeah, even a small amount of progress is still progress.
Right.
And incrementally that will become something
you bet.
Massive.
Yeah. That's funny, man. I bet you I piss a lot of people off talking about numbers. Most people don't dare bring it up, but I'm always breaking things down. And they're like, check this out. If you just read 10 minutes a day, by the end of the year, you're going to read 26 hours.
Yeah.
And it's like, but maybe most people are like, that doesn't help me. But to me, it does, and I always talk about the compound interest. And I talk about the other thing is, get really, really good at the things that you do every day.
Yeah.
Because that's in that 1% type of theory that like, if you get good at it, like getting out of bed, like you're going to have to do it every day for the rest of your life. Interacting with your kids. Why don't you try to get really, really, really good at that? And get really, really, really good at first impressions and how you meet a stranger.
Yeah.
And if like you get really, really, really good at those things that you do every day, then that's that 0.1%.
Yeah.
And by the time you're 40, by the time you're 50, you are mastered at that.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's
rather
so true,
than just letting the alarm clock get you out of bed, or rather than just resorting to the same, how was school today, Timmy? Questions. It's like, no, why don't you start practicing being better at it? And whatever that means for you, what being better at getting out of bed means, or what being better at talking to your kids means, but yeah, just the things that you do every day rather than, we put tons of effort into keto and, into all these other things. And it's like, just take that energy right over there. You're close. I like it. You're trying to better yourself. You're seeking, but it's like, take that energy and go into what doesn't seem like it would be a big deal.
Right. Just simplify it. Like, it doesn't have to be complicated.
Well, if you don't have a good relationship with your child, there could be a lot of problems there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, like, it, just take it the negative side. Like, imagine if you couldn't get out of bed the way that you wanted to, and it was just the worst.
Yeah.
It was like, because I've known people like that, and it's like they don't have very much success. you know, because it's like,
They start the day off with an L.
yeah, and I mean success in their own terms, because how could you have much success if you don't know when you're going to get out of bed in the morning? You know, and it's that type of thing to where it's like, and again, how much success could you have if your your initial statement to your child each day is a cliche or a repeated statement that most parents say, how was school today?
Yeah.
Instead of saying, hey, did you have an adventure today at school?
Yeah.
No.
Just going
Well,
through
what was the best part of your day at school then if you didn't have an adventure? You know, I love doing, I actually, like with my kids, I change it around all the time. What was the worst part of school today?
Yeah.
You know, and that way they can maybe, unfortunately, as human beings, we can usually find something wrong with a situation
Right.
before good. So
Yeah.
then it changes their state, and they're like, oh, I can answer this question. Like,
Right.
my teacher, Mrs. Beasley, she's so fat, and then she came in, and it's like, easy, Braxton. Like, you know, like, but those are real stories, and you start getting, hey, man, I'd rather at least have to talk to my kid about how he spoke about me to his teacher rather than
Yeah.
hear a canned response of, well, he's good. You know, it was good.
Right. Well, at
You
least
know?
yeah, and at least your kid's talking to you.
Right. Right. But try to get more than a one answer response
Yeah.
from your kids, you know, and, you know, that would be probably a way to be better at that. And same thing with your spouse. It's amazing how many quote unquote loved ones don't really communicate. You
Yeah.
know, they say like a certain amount of minutes each week, you know, a good relationship has. And it's like, whoa, like,
The amount of people who are just kind of going through the motions, just kind of living life without meaning or purpose, just unfulfilled, just kind of just doing what they were told to do is astronomical. There are a lot of people.
80% of us. Numbers.
I believe it.
Oh, yeah, no, that's what they say, you know, 80% of the productivity. And Adam, this is in numbers. Like, so you take a factory, it's that same number. It's 80/20. You take a factory or you take any organization of salespeople, say, 80% of the income that the company makes is from 20% of the sales
Right.
people.
Yep.
You got about 80% of the people in the wagon. You got about 20% of the people pulling the wagon. I don't know, you know, because again, the political fallout of that is tough. It really is because, you know, I do care about people at the bottom. I care about the dispossessed, and you will have dispossessed and you will have uber rich. And that is not cool, you know, in a lot of ways. But the political fallout gets touchy because the only way to kind of fix that seems to be some sort of a handout or some sort of, you know, assistance.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's people that need that.
Yeah.
There are. And that needs to be provided by a country of our stature. But what does that do to what we had been talking about prior, to people's challenges that they need to overcome in relation to how they feel about themselves and their life's meaning? You know?
It's hard to say, man. I've also kind of wrestled with the idea of like a universal basic income, like what that might do for society
Right.
and whatnot. Like, I understand both sides. I know it really just depends on the person, because you're definitely gonna have some people who would like take that money and not do shit with it.
Well, do you want to give money to drug addicts? Would that be, you know, like that's a lot of times it's not money that people need.
Right.
That would get them
Money
to
isn't
the
always
place.
the answer.
Right, because there's a lot of people that as soon as they get money, they're actually going to cause themselves and their community at large more harm. You know, remember 50% of the murders are caused by drunks. And so, you know, and so you got to be careful with that concept
Right.
of the you know, do you just hand out a debit card to people that are struggling, and where does that, you know, where is a line drawn on what actually struggling means, you know, and all that. It gets tough. But I do believe there has to be a safety net. There has to be
Well, even just like basic needs. I feel like with as rich of a country as we are, I mean, obviously, like you can't help everybody. I mean, there's a lot of people with a lot of addiction and terrible mental disease, and they're never gonna live.
But
in a
how
home.
are you helping people with the basic need of a challenge, because that is a fundamental need.
Yeah,
Psychologically, and again, we'll go back to people who say, well, people need housing, correct?
right,
They need food,
right.
yes, they do, and they need a little, revenue for whatever. But it's like they also need meaning in their life.
Yeah. Well, the question is, okay,
and how do you provide that?
Well, I feel like life will provide it in some form or fashion in many regards. But like, if we did meet, let's just say housing and food, like, I don't know, for me, if I got $1,000 check that would just cover just those basic things, that would make life a whole lot easier for me to pursue all these.
Yeah, but we don't
things.
count.
But that's just me.
We're driven, man.
Exactly.
You have ideas. You got.
But would there be more
creations.
people who would also do that?
Yeah,
maybe.
I know. And even if you could, again, the question is, what if you just even grabbed one of those out of every 1,000?
Yeah.
One of us that's trapped.
Yeah. Or even if, like, say you got that check, right, and you didn't even put it towards, like, having a house and shit, but what if you were just, like, living on the fucking road and mountain biking and putting out awesome positivity in the fucking world? Who's to say, like, that's not valuable, too?
Yeah, I know, but...
So it's like, what is...
Then I go back to I agree, man. It's not easy.
It's not.
I would hate to think that then we're a country that's so focused on passing around $10,000 to each other, when just one 10,000, what that would do into like sub-Sahara Africa. They don't even have wells yet down there. They don't even have fresh water systems.
Yeah, we have so much waste in our country.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Is it necessarily a good thing to start, generating just more? And it sucks, because I hate the idea of trapped potential.
Yeah.
Like I picture these kids that are in poverty-stricken situations and that don't have, here's the thing. I think they all have the physical, material opportunity. What I'm speaking of, they don't have the opportunity, and they don't get the support psychologically,
you don't have the encouragement.
And emotionally.
Oh, you think you're better than us? Oh, you think you can go do other things? Like, crabs, like, people are like crabs in a fucking barrel, dude.
Oh, sure.
Especially
familial,
in poverty,
too.
Yeah, dude. In these poverty-stricken environments, dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Family will pull you down just as fast as a friend will.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, man.
And, it's just, I feel that the solution of just spilling more money into it
might not be the answer.
Might not be the answer. But you can't start knocking things until you have a better answer. So it's like, dude, I don't know, dude.
Dude, I don't fucking know.
That's why I'm not a senator. Shit.
Yeah.
But it's worth paying attention to, because I care about people, and I've always wondered. At first, when I was a lot younger, I would judge homeless people, and then it's like, well, go get a job, and it's like, it's not the problem. These people are addicted. And that is the problem, and that shouldn't be a reason why they don't get to participate in society.
Mm-hmm.
They need to we need to help them out of that addiction.
Well, the amount of vets that are homeless.
Well, and it's trauma.
Yeah.
Everybody's dealing that trauma. For me, it was very minuscule of not getting to the status I wanted to in life by a certain time, and it drove me to an addiction. I can't imagine what
it's all relative.
Real
though.
trauma. I know, but
trauma is trauma.
There's some. It is, and I did go through a lot, but it makes me cringe sometimes when I see that there's people going through what isn't even on the scale of what I feel I went through.
Yeah.
And I know that the trauma that these people are harboring is huge, especially the vets.
Mm-hmm.
And the abandonment type of a feeling that a lot of the vets deal with.
Right. They come home and...
Yeah, and you can't articulate that again. And a lot of times any typical right-winger would just be like, whatever, pull up your bootstraps. They got to get back to work. They got an education. They got a free education. Why can't they, and it's like,
right.
No, it's not, we're so delicate, we're these powerful vessels, but yet we have no idea how we even work. We have no control over ourselves, mm-hmm. very little at the most. And it needs to be considered with people that are in tough situations in life.
Right.
And a homeless addict is the worst place you could be. You clearly have no control over any of your actions, and you don't have anybody that cares any longer. So, that's gotta be almost close to as absolute zero as possible.
It's rock bottom for sure.
Yeah, it really is. And it does make you think. But it's interesting, Adam, because I make it a notion to throw a few dollars here and there to people that I see at a gas station, and I try to do more than that. I actually try to have a simple conversation, and just say hello and ask them their name. That's a big thing that I like to do, because God knows it's probably never been said or asked from most people, maybe in 5 years.
Treat them like an actual person.
Try to, and I'm not patronizing anybody or trying to be anybody that I'm not. They all have cell phones though. But because you can get those.
Right.
You can get those. And I don't mean to say that, but that's what I'm saying. Like, so what else do we want to, like, they have a cell phone. And now, like, there's transportation that's fairly convenient in the form of not public, a shared economy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for a bus pass price, and so practically speaking, let's use our resources maybe as a country that maybe we could provide, transportation coupons, type of things,
Mm-hmm.
but, to some sort of a work process thing.
Right.
And, but yeah, the answer is going to be obviously in the details of each individual, and it's going to be healing trauma. But I don't think it's money. I don't think it's a money issue. I think it's and the other aspect of the money is the corruption. These people, I mean, no offense, I'm not a Mother Teresa, but I'm really interested in helping people. And the majority of the people that I come into contact in bureaucratic environments and in the machine of our governments, they don't want to be there. They don't want to help anybody. And they're not telling me that. I'm just watching them, and I'm just basing it off their actions,
mm-hmm.
and how long it takes my calls to get returned, and certain things like that.
Right.
And believe it or not, I'm still on a state probation 5 years from all my bullshit in the past, and that's been a very fun thing to go through with your life together. And it's been interesting because I know I'm one of the rare ones that actually shows up to an appointment 15 minutes early with a drug addiction counselor. This was in the beginning of the stages. I had to get assessed, and then my probation officer I contacted the first day, and all the steps that I go through to do that. What happened to me is that actually threw up a bunch of red flags,
Really?
and it caused me more havoc. And I got accused of trying to rush the process, and because I finished my community service within like 2 weeks, 40 hours of community
Just
service.
40 hours?
I just banged it out. I don't have a job, so it's like, well, technically for my probation officer, if she's listening, yeah, I still work for myself, and I do. But it's like,
But right, you're not
I'm not pinned down
into a 9 to 5.
And so I realized right away that these people were not there to help me get back onto my feet.
Dude, it's a trap. Once you're in the system, they want to keep you there, bro.
Right. But it makes me wonder who they are, though. Like,
yeah, I don't know who the they is, but
I think it's an individual. It's an aggregate of individuals, because that person had a job that they didn't want to be there.
That is an industry that needs to be supported.
Oh, it's brutal.
That's a whole nother rabbit hole, Randy.
I know, dude.
Man, dude, we're coming up on 2 hours.
Jesus,
dude, this has been a fun.
Yeah,
conversation.
I gotta get going. Dude.
Yeah, I know, bro. I appreciate.
I get carried away.
So, yeah, dude. Is there anything that you wanted to direct the people to if they wanted to check you out or anything like that?
Yeah. I would just say the best thing that for people to do is to go to my website, movegoodfeelgood.com, and you'll be able to get into contact. All of my contact information is right there on that website. But more importantly, like we talked about a little earlier, that's the meat and potatoes of what I do. It's kind of an app, a web-based app. So if you go to my website, it just kind of brings you into an app. It's very easy to use. And you can go through a few videos of those motor development movements that I think people should be testing themselves on. Touching their toes and balancing on one leg. And you can keep track of your progress. So you can upload a video of you maybe practicing some of these bear crawl movements I've got, a lot of mobility movements. Mm-hmm. And so it's a very practical website application. And that's movegoodfeelgood.com. My email address and contact info is all on there. But I really encourage people to check that out. It'll give you, some simple movements to do right in your living room in front of the TV with your kids. Basic stuff.
Yeah, dope, dude. And I'll put it in the show notes, so
Yeah,
it'll be
appreciate
easy. It'll
that.
be easy for people to find.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, man.
Dude, Randy, thanks, brother.
Hell yeah, dude. It's been fun.
Yeah, man. All right, folks. Bye.
See ya.